If you're moving your core team, which is building momentum, this new opportunity looks good, but if you're taking your eye off the ball of that segment, that's where it can really break, ending up absolutely nothing.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the first episode of Why Growth Stops. Most founders think if they have a superior product and enough capital, growth is an inevitability. But in my work with technically complex startups, I see a silent killer that has nothing to do with the code: communication debt. We spend millions on R&D, but almost nothing on the infrastructure of how we actually make decisions. When communication is vague, your traction doesn't just slow down, it stops compounding. Today, we're joined by John DeWees, an investor and board member who treats communication like a high stakes engineering problem. We're going to discuss why your vision is getting lost in translation and the exact moment that human noise starts costing you the company. John, welcome to the show. You have built everything from international hospitality product brands to green supercomputer development to healthcare infrastructure and cross-platform quantum encryption cybersecurity. Usually people ask about the tech, but you said the first thing you install in a new company isn't a better tech stack. It's professional communication training. Why?
Thank you, Nico, for having me today. I'm looking forward to this opportunity to speak with you about something I'm very passionate about. I have done many different things in life, but the one thing that stays the same in boardrooms, on manufacturing floors, is communication. Nothing moves forward without proper communication. Whether we're making a product in China or developing a green energy quantum computers in Nebraska, it's always about communication. So that's what I'd love to talk about today. And I have some examples that I could share, but I would really like to bring the grounding back to the fact that it's individuals working in concert, in alignment, with trust, that make things really work. So I think I'd like to start with one of my most recent ventures, which is building green energy opportunities in emerging markets, dedicated to opening up green energy opportunities to bring all the stakeholders into a world of opportunity, that they can access the internet, have power to light their homes, work, and feed their families. The first thing we did is training, being with people, learning how they can be best at communication and how it works from top to bottom. We went from no employees to 19 employees on a shoestring budget. We are in 12 different countries with 19 different languages spoken. I've never seen an organization so effectively being in communication about what we are, who we are, what we're up to, and how we're being in our communication. That's one of my greatest pleasures, to have assembled a team that knows how to actually create that kind of effort. So I'd love to hear from you a little bit about what you hear when I say communication, what it shows up for you.
I appreciate you sharing that. When we have different cultures and backgrounds, the importance of communication amplifies. Every person communicates differently. When on a mission to accomplish something big together, having that communication infrastructure is so important to make sure the alignment is happening. Is that how you're thinking about it?
That's exactly right. My first real opportunity was quite a while ago. I worked for somebody for a year and a half in 1981. He gave me the opportunity to do product development around the world in Brazil, Uruguay, Italy, France, Korea, Taiwan, Philippines, and Hong Kong. This was long before China was available to us. And learning the processes and being able to develop products with a high level of quality intended for main floor department stores in the United States and in Europe. I had to be with the people making it. I spent time on the plant floor learning everyone's job, going to the supply chain, leather markets, plastic extrusion factories, thread factories, whatever it took to understand what they had to do helped me help them. And that was my first lesson. Now, after 40 plus years in manufacturing, product development, industry, branding, and all these other things, I realize how those little lessons, me sitting with a person in Brazil speaking Portuguese at a sewing machine and watching their work and being in that level of communication was absolutely inspirational for what we're doing now with green energy programs in different countries with different regulatory. And that permeates what we do in terms of how we are with each other. So, for example, in every single meeting, we establish who we are for each other and how other people are for us. And this creates that camaraderie that goes across cultures, because no matter where you are, people are the same. They have the same needs, wants, goals to be prosperous, take care of families, be honored for their work. That's where we start and end. And the rest in between is functionary, building. But in the beginning and in the end, we connect with each other with honor and acknowledgement.
Can you share when you realized the smart team was failing because they couldn't get the human signal?
I was a co-founder and actually leading from product. I was the president of the company. And I've mostly led product positions instead of finance positions or marketing position. And there was a gap between sales, who had their language, the production team had their language, the overseas team had their language, marketing team had their language, and we were not in communication about what was next. And where we had opportunities, the sales team was not communicating to the production people, and we were at risk of having this, particularly was around Chinese New Year, and losing an entire season of product. So what I chose to do was stop, everyone, stop. Where are we? What are you missing? What is your gap? Can I share with you my gap from my position? Marketing, can you share what you need? We stopped for 2 days. Nothing except talking. We realigned, reestablished what was priority, what we needed to do, where we had to spend money, what we could avoid, what we could let go completely, how we would change the supply chain movement. We made every single one of our commitments because we reestablished our communication, and it actually absolutely worked. So that was one case where 8 years later, it was time for the company to organize itself in a way that it could have an exponential kind of growth and seek additional capital, additional strategic partners to help that happen. And the leader, a good salesperson, not a product person, a very good salesperson, knew how to speak to customers, but did not know how to speak to strategic opportunities. And that was my gap for not training him to do so. We stopped and we spent some time together, and that particular leader was incapable of understanding what it took to speak to strategic people, and stepping in to support that was seen as a diminution of his ability instead of as an opportunity to be together and to do something as a team. And that never worked. And the company was later sold, but without ever really being able to see its full potential because there was resistance in the space. In my training of teams, resistance is not necessary. To looking good is not necessary. To having your ego massaged is not necessary. We let these things go and get to the point where we are leading, following, listening, creating all at the same time. These are the lessons. That is how this company, with all the languages, cultures, and all the geographic distance and the time zone difference, continues to maintain an amazing level of acceleration for building the business we're committed to building.
Thank you for sharing. I love the first example of sprinting for diagnosis. That's what I recommend to founders. as clarity is worth the time. It's not always going to work. And there are different personalities and resistance. No matter how hard you try, the person might not be the right fit. And that is also a lesson to choose the direction accordingly.
It is a lesson. And that's why we begin with training. Many people life around looking good and being perceived as excellent at what they do, when in fact that has relatively no value. What brings value is people coming to work together. That's the value. We're all human beings with talents, foibles, and emotions. For people to be most effective and fully self-expressed in their talents and abilities, the ability to actually stop, listen, and really communicate. When we talk about communication, people share something, they communicate something. The listeners are required to take what they heard, repeat it back, so the speaker knows they were fully heard. It slows the pace down, increases the effectiveness and completeness of the communication. Within that context, when there are commitments to be made, they become promises with timeframes. And promises and timeframes are accountability. Accountability helps drive the team. As things accelerate, it gets much harder and many more things happen faster, compresses the time, essentially. So that training that we do is very deliberate about speaking, being recreated in your communication, acknowledged in your communication, and setting promises with timeframes. That's how we move fast.
Thank you for sharing that. Now let's talk about the external signal or noise that founders are receiving. Founders who have interest or maybe even revenue, sometimes they're drowning in noise. They listen to everyone, users, investors, advisors, but they cannot really find a focused path. So I'm curious, from your experience, what is the false positive signal that looks like traction but isn't, that founders most often misinterpret because of poor communication?
Interesting, because there was a time when on Friday night or Saturday, depending on how you worked, when you went home, that was it. You're with your family. Now it's 24/7. So that noise that comes in sometimes comes in on a Saturday night at 9:30. Or because I work with Europe, it comes at 4 in the morning, or my team in New Zealand, where we're 18 hours apart in a different day. You never know what's coming. Having all that stimulation is disruptive for early stage founders. You have your model, you have your moat, you think you've got everything aligned, and then somebody has a boat that crosses your moat and throws you off. The disruption. How do you know? The best way to handle it is to stop and listen, pull the team together, have everyone recreate your experience of how that noise showed up, follow your instinct, wait, or seek something else. As we move forward, there's always gaps. Money, tech, client acquisition, communication. We've changed gap to gap opportunity. So every one of those gaps is actually an opportunity. How does that work? The most effective leader, especially the ones in executive positions, different than founders many times, their job is to maintain the structure. With the wind blowing, with the water rushing in, with all the distractions, with the noises, their job to keep the structure moving. Founders can drift. Their job to be the evangelist, to build a structure for noise that comes in. It's crucial. For example, we were in a company that had an opportunity. We're doing shower curtains for the world. I forget how many millions a year. They wanted us to do something that looked like an opportunity as a related product, but they demanded a lot. And we, at that time, looked at it. We started to explore it. We realized it was distracting. It moved our supply chain around. It changed the timing. It changed the aggregation. It changed our marketing strategy. It had a new level of communication. There were different seasonal pieces involved. So we chose to say that does not align and let it go. That turned out to be the right decision. Later, another opportunity aligned with supply chain, aligned with the distribution channels, aligned with seasonalities. And that we said, okay, that aligns. It was really the executive side creating these boundaries, whereas the marketing people and the salespeople, oh, look, another product to sell, another bright, shiny object I can go to the market with and do that. And so It is the leadership and the executives who understand the entire picture have to be calm and thoughtful about making those kinds of changes.
I agree. This is very important because, especially early stage, you have tons of options, different markets, different partners. The most important thing is focus, proving one market, one niche, and going for the next. I want to talk about AI, how AI is accelerating human faults. How does this speed create a communication bottleneck in early stage teams from your experience?
This is really what I've been managing for the past year or so. I've gotten a little bit involved in AI. I have a couple of founders and friends who are involved in it. And one of them came up with a very cogent observation today. He said, human beings develop like a Mendelssohn concerto. And AI is like John Coltrane playing giant steps. Mendelssohn concertos, beautiful lead-ins and themes, they develop slowly and beautifully, and they coalesce into these grand, beautiful, emotional, just gorgeous environment of sound. And John Coltrane and Giant Steps, which is a pretty famous jazz tune, is done at blinding speed with lots of harmonic changes. And that's what AI is. Should I be dealing with my customers? Should I be dealing with the competition? What do I do to make myself different? What about this training and that training? The interface, what should I do first? There's no definite way to say this is the right decision. You're going to make mistakes. What I have found with the two AI opportunities I've been involved with, one started off choosing to look around corners for opportunities, focus on the M&A segment. If we merge, if we divest, if we buy, if we sell, if we pivot within those things, what does the world look like for the company and the employees, and how does it impact? That training was interesting, and there was decent business created at that point. The training of the model was good, but the training of the team was even better because they made a lot of mistakes. It got difficult and they had to build a whole new interface and it didn't make any sense to do it. But training of that impossibility translated into a new opportunity working with a large design architectural firm who's building a new campus for a large organization, focusing on how best to build facilities so people could align and work effectively. And then that large client wanted something involved in the financial side. All that training they had done, which had to be abandoned, showed up. They kept the seeds. They had planted, it flowered, wasn't great. They took the seeds, they put the seeds away, but they kept the seeds. So now with this new opportunity, they pull some of these old seeds out, and now it's turning into a full dashboard of opportunities, managing supply chain, finance, marketing, transportation, product development in a single dashboard across multiple areas. What looked like a disaster turned into something wonderful. They never took their eye off of listening to their customer, creating communication of transparency, reliability, authenticity, credibility, and playing with a big vision for the success of the client.
I love that example. The takeaway for me is that even if you feel like you're failing or you made a mistake, when you look back, you can connect the dots and figure out how this could be helpful. And it comes in our personal and professional lives all the time.
Yes, it does.
So it's just about perspective, how I can learn to do better. And we wouldn't be who we are if we don't make mistakes.
We wouldn't be who we are because they're not mistakes, they're opportunities.
Thank you for sharing. Now we want to talk about the derailment of startups or the decisions they need to make. Growth often stops when a founder is forced to choose between two paths, the safer path of optionality or the irreversible path of radical focus. From your experience, what was the moment a decision was being avoided? What was the specific hidden decision that was stalling the company?
The most cogent answer goes back to one of the companies I was referring to earlier, where we had that opportunity to do something we thought was going to be helpful to us. Bad choice because it was disruptive. Young founders think they can do everything. Good. I guess that's true. And they want to do a huge opportunity to pursue. It is, there's many ways you can break it, but the most crucial thing to do is whatever you have maintained, whatever you've built already, make sure that is fully stable. If you're moving your core team, which is building momentum, this new opportunity looks good. But if you're taking your eye off the ball of that segment, that's where it can really break, ending up absolutely nothing. In my world, I've not had that really happen to me where everything really broke, but I have friends who've pursued something they thought the golden sunrise. And the decision they made was made with impulsivity, without actually bringing in experts, people who've had experience, not talking to clients, not doing the research, reacting emotionally. What looks good is not the right choice. There are people who are crows and like all the bright, shiny objects they can get. It's the wrong thing to do. I saw that happen in a manufacturing company building adjacent products to what I was building in the hospitality area. They miserably failed. We end up buying their assets and turning it into something because we already had the supply chain and distribution.
Thank you. And what are the moments that founders avoid the decision? At least when they choose a shiny object, they make a mistake, fail, and hopefully learn.
Right.
But I have noticed a lot of times founders just avoid making that decision. They assume that multiple interest points means there's product market fit or there's some sort of traction. I'm curious if you experienced this indecision.
Is that indecision or overestimating? It is
Yeah,
indecision because they're not making a decision about what they're going to choose. They want to look good. They want to have everything, the discipline. If you're going to train for a triathlon and then they want you to enter a gymnastics competition, no, it's different training, knowing one's limits. And that's where having an advisory board is so critical. Having people who have experience. I'm on a board that is for a mediumly successful textile garment company. One of the members of the board is the chairman, CEO, and president of a $10 billion company who started his career with a small frozen food item and then became the master of the frozen food world and grew. So this small company has the wisdom of someone who's seen everything, has seen supply chain, retail, everything, and not only in the product side, but on the distribution, on the supply chain, on the go-to-market product development, customer interface, ecological and green energy issues, waste issues. He brings all of that and that calmness and that centeredness that really helps clarify what to be done, especially when COVID hit. He was there every day with us, really bringing his knowledge, his clarity, his calmness, his awareness of how to cut, how to trim, how to adjust, how to grow, even in the face of a worldwide kind of a disaster. He became my hero at that point with my board positions, to be that person who's questioning, is that the right way? What are you doing? What are you getting out of it? Who are you affecting? What about your home life? Does your wife want you to waste all the pieces of being human and the pieces of business that all really counts? It's not just about winning that race, it's about winning the bigger prizes that really count. Humanity, effectiveness, constancy, morality, all of that really does count. That's what I learned from him.
The takeaway from this example is that founders need to be open-minded, humble, and flexible to be delegating to other executives, consultants, and potentially board members.
Yeah, it's really true. When you're a founder, you really are the conductor of a symphony. It really is a symphony. And that talent sometimes has a sternness to it. Sometimes it has a gentleness to it. And sometimes it has absolute head down dedication. All of those things have to happen. As we started to really listen to what people want to build, successful founders are the ones who are up to something much bigger than themselves. They're really standing for something big to make a difference in the world. and to carry the people along with them that also have that same vision, who have that same respect, that same honoring and acknowledgement of all of the things that make us human and why we're here. When you have a happy user, client, happy employees, and happy families with those employees, you've actually changed the world. You've actually done something worth doing. And those are the people I like to be with, like the host of this opportunity.
Appreciate you. It takes a certain level of wisdom and experience to be humble enough to ask for help. Understand that you can't do it all by yourself. Focus on your strengths. Now let's talk about the drift. What happens after a decision is made or training is over? Companies and people sometimes shift directions and the narrative decays. Suddenly, the team is back to making custom explanation to every sale pitch or investor conversation. I'm curious, once you have trained a team to communicate, where do you see the drift happens, going back to vague habits under pressure?
The blessing after my first career, which was being a biochemist, I joined the theater for a while. I went to NYU, arts and performance, very different. I got to know some successful people in the theater. When you do something again and again, a piece of choreography, a play, it's never the same. It's always recreated newly. Stopping and recreating newly for yourself is critical. One of the blessings I have is two people that 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, at 7:45, we get together for 15 minutes. We declare what we've given up: looking good, controlling, expecting. And we say creating newly, being open to new things, being a cause to make things better. And what's the possibility for today? The possibility is being powerful, loving, and in communication. We do some version of that 5 days a week. It's like a meditation of making it new. We used to see actors and dancers do that. They knew the choreography, but every time they did it, it wasn't, oh, I'm doing this again. It's recreating it newly every time. And so if you're in a company that has good levels of success and you're doing your pitch, say you want to raise another $5 million in working capital. If you just throw out your pitch like you've done it 100 times, nobody cares. It doesn't matter. You're not showing why it makes a difference. But if you come with why you're looking for the money, not the laundry list, you have to bring the realness, the effect, the power of the company, employees and supply chain, we want customers to experience. You create emotional relatedness for an investor to say, this person has the drive, vision, and willingness to be vulnerable and powerful. That's the person I want to invest in. And that's when it's fun.
It goes back to communication because depending on who you're speaking to, context, your pitch, your story, your narrative, it's all going to be different. If you're just playing back the same old tape, that's not going to work.
Yes, it's perfect to say that because when you're in front of an institutional investor, they have a different level of responsible than an angel investor. They're there for different reasons. So the important thing is not to pitch them. I call it a communication, an exploration, a discovery. What is here that I can share with you that makes something bigger? 1 + 1 is more than 2. What can we do that's different? Then you're not asking for something, you're discovering. When you discover together, there's a chance. It may not be that time, but it doesn't matter because the discovery and the communication and the humanity is the important part.
And it's also a two-way decision. They are pitching to us as much as we're pitching to them, or we're communicating as much as they should be communicating. You have shared the elements of trust, like reliability and authenticity. I would love for you to share with our audience a bit about that and your tip on how to scale those when the founder is no longer in every room.
The idea of trust showed up after I had a particularly good year and I had the opportunity to start coaching mostly women and minority founders. And I was listening for their challenges, and the challenges not being taken seriously. The ability to create trust has to jump across barriers. People tend to not trust in a world of appearance or superficial success, but building real trust is different. Any good brand is built on trust. What I was discovering with coaching, there was a reticence to be vulnerable. What is it that you really want for your life? And everyone wanted to have some success and financial success and acknowledgement about their work and efforts. If you're going to do that, you have to build something valuable. And being a brand is value. The brand is basically a set of promises. Any brand has people can count on, they can trust it. So what is trust? That allowed for compelling conversations about the elements of trust. I spent time looking into what people talk about trust and their experience. I interviewed a lot of people on this. And the elements of trust that came down for me, in parallel to what other people discovered, is credibility. Do you know what you're talking about? Reliability. Do you do what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it? So it's the doing and the when, very critical. Authenticity. Now, authenticity is the tough because it's about human beings. Human beings are very full of fluids and they're very messy. That's what they are. Authenticity is the ability to be with people and moved by them or move others, and a way of honesty. Because all of us have been in a meeting where someone shows up and they act real like they know what I'm doing and all that, but the minute they left, they forgot about you, or what they said that wasn't really going to count. So the idea of authenticity is that genuine ability to be moved or move others into something that's important. The last element, the fourth element, is how big of a game are you playing? Are you playing just for yourself, some small thing, or are you actually doing something in the world that makes a difference? You lift yourself up. There are big brands who've built their world around making a difference. Nike, we build champions. Bold statement. But if that's really their commitment and they find themselves to a lot of champions, that is playing a very big game. When you take credibility, reliability, authenticity in the game you're playing, you can analyze not only a human, you can analyze Verizon. Is Verizon credible? Yeah. Good mobile service. Are they reliable? They're pretty reliable. Are they authentic? If you called them up, would they take your call and consider changing something? Probably not so much. It's not a judgment. It's a big company. So you can look at that. I've often asked the founders, pick somebody, pick a parent, pick your mom. Is your mom credible? My mom was very credible. Was she reliable? She was super reliable. Was she authentic? Yes, she always listened to me, shared intimate things, and really moved me. Was she playing a big game? She's playing a game for the future through me. So what would you give her? She gets 100. Moms can get that trust level. That's super helpful. I use that because people can relate to that. But even as a brand, if you're choosing to be credible, you have the education, the intelligence, you show up and do what you say you're going to do. You're there to learn something, to discuss. I use the word discovery a lot in communication. And you want to change the world, you can build a huge level of trust in the United States. You're seen for the character of your heart, what you're up to. That's why I love this country. I like the idea that we have the ability to be who we want to be and make a difference and build trust. That's everything for me.
Thank you for sharing that framework. I think that's very important. Trust is everything. And having these elements and frameworks in mind really helps. And again, it goes back to our communication skills. Like, in order to establish those credibility, authenticity on all of those elements, we need to be able to communicate, listen, speak properly, and establish relationships properly. So that was really good. When companies make mistakes and don't make the decisions or just not solving this communication that they have, can you share with us what is the actual price that they're going to pay? Is it the immediate failures on the revenue side or fundraising, or more longer term trust issues?
It can vary. You can get the full range of things. Things can break quietly over the breadth of the organization, like a total breakdown of trust among the verticals within the organization. Or it can be one singular thing, like a leadership issue, where a leader is caught in some issues, blows things up. There can be any of those things. I don't think there's any one decision for the most part that's going to kill a company unless it's something really egregious and the company's small and fragile. But any company that is committed to acknowledging where things aren't working as a leg up on a company that wants to hold on to the way they're seen. There's a very big company out there that I'm incredibly disappointed in because there's a social media company and they're not being honest about the effect of their platform. And I've heard a lot of people and do not come with forthrightness and honesty. I think it has a chance of being semi-fatal, actually, at some point. It certainly can move in a negative direction. Most of us don't participate in companies that big, but the methodology is the same. Constant self-reflection, acknowledging when things work and don't work, taking responsibility and accountability for what doesn't work, and then putting in place new systems, new acknowledgments, letting go of the things that don't work and putting in place the right things that do work, being honest, just being really straight about it. And again, that comes back to communication and authenticity. The authenticity of who you are and the effect of your actions. If you don't do that work, you will fail. You'll either fail as a human being, the company will fail, or you'll hurt people.
Yes, I have come across companies that lose some of their best talents because they can't make the right decision at the right time. And that just prevents people, even good people, to do their job and be the best version of themselves. So, yes, there are many consequences. And if the founder is listening and waiting for more data or communication, what is one thing they should do today to make a difference?
That's interesting. Dealing with something like that in one of my organizations. If the founder or the leadership is waiting on other people to make decisions and they're not clear about when the information is going to be coming, they need to stop that. They need to put a time for when does something have to be created, the information be shared. And not only the by when, but what will the breadth of that information be by when? The form of leadership is to keep the cadence. As the conductor, there's a beat, there's a rhythm. Sometimes it's faster, but sometimes it's slower. The harmonies have to be there. You need to show up with your information by a certain time, the decision window. And that's the window we're keeping. I need you to promise me that you're going to do that. I'm going to hold you accountable. By doing that level of structure, it's like being in a family. I'm the patriarch. I expect the team to have certain standards. There's an expectation. And the by when and what by when is critical. If I don't do that for them, it hurts them. When you're a leader, your job is to keep that cadence in place, that people are doing it so that you can make those decisions. When that time comes for you have the information that you expected, good, bad, or indifferent, whatever it is, not so critical. You had it, and that time allows a new decision, new starting point to be built, a new pathway to create with a new cadence. So leadership is holding people to account on their promises.
That is such a good point. In one experience, I've noticed others thinking that they're avoiding conflicts or keeping the harmony. But as you said, that doesn't necessarily mean it's really keeping the harmony. You're just avoiding the answers or decisions, hoping that it will never show up, but it will show up.
We're all human, and it will happen. You lose the cadence at some point. The thing to just acknowledge it. What can we do to get ourselves back on track? If you try to hide it, it doesn't self-heal. It's not. But being honest and authentic about breakdowns, critical.
Very good point. Sometimes those tough decisions, those tough conversations are good for both sides. If someone is not the right fit, if an opportunity is not the right fit, it's better to know sooner than later when it's too late or people are too invested.
That's why it has to be constant. I shared earlier about being in communication at a level that's often uncomfortable.
Yes.
It's okay to be uncomfortable.
Get comfortable with uncomfortable. That's my motto.
I'm going to write that down.
John identified the exact moment growth stopped. It wasn't a failure of the supercomputing model or product market fit. It was a failure of the decision architecture. In my work, I see founders ignore communication events because they fear that closing doors means losing opportunities. But as John showed, flexibility is actually a risk that investors see through immediately. The decision you need to make this week to identify one vague area of your strategy, market, or narrative and force the commitment. Clarity isn't a luxury. It's what lets traction and growth finally compound. Stop guessing.